The crystal chandeliers in that yacht club ballroom threw diamonds of light across champagne flutes and polished silver. 2 minutes ago, it was all string quartets and congratulations. Officers in their summer whites, admirals shaking hands with senators. Now the only sound was my weathered fishing boots squeaking on imported marble as I stood over a rear admiral's son, his designer tuxedo soaked in champagne and blood from his split lip. I looked like exactly what I was, a ghost from the docks they'd rather forget. 6 security guards had hands on radios, unsure whether to tackle me or thank me. But I wasn't looking at them. I was looking at the Admiral. His face had gone the color of old sailcloth. His eyes weren't on the man I'd just sent through the gift table, but on the faded ink on my forearm, an anchor wrapped in barbed wire with coordinates beneath it that had been hidden under my sleeve for 18 years until the scuffle tore the fabric. He mouthed something nobody else could hear. Ironside. And the air changed. Before we continue, drop your location in the comments. We love seeing where our stories travel across the seas. I never liked yacht clubs. They smell like money, privilege, and people who've never had to gut a tuna in a hurricane. But I made a promise to a man who died on my boat 7 years ago, tangled in lines during a nor'easter that came out of nowhere. Just walk her down the aisle, Marcus, Chief Petty Officer Danny Reeves had whispered, coughing seawater and blood. Her mother's gone. My parents are gone. She's got nobody. Just be there so she knows family showed up. So there I was, parked at a public dock 3 miles from the club, scraping fish scales from under my fingernails in a marina bathroom with a mirror that had seen better decade. I didn't own a suit. I had clean khakis, a white button-down that wasn't too wrinkled, and my deck shoes. That was as formal as Marcus Kane got. I borrowed a friend's pickup truck, because my commercial fishing rig wasn't exactly wedding venue material. Security at the gate took 15 minutes. The young guard confused why a weathered fisherman was trying to access a 5-star venue. I walked the quarter-mile to the ballroom. The Atlantic breeze carried salt and money, mixing uneasily. My knees protested every step. Too many years pulling nets, too many waves that threw me against the gunwale. The ballroom was packed. A Coast Guard wedding, big deal for these officers' kids. I found a spot near the back behind some decorative palms and scanned the room for her. Emma. She looked like her dad around the cheekbones, but she held herself rigid, like she was afraid one wrong move would shatter the illusion. Lieutenant Junior Grade Emma Reeves, about to marry a rear admiral's son. She should have been glowing. She wasn't. She stood near the champagne fountain, gripping a glass like it was the only thing keeping her anchored. And looming over her was him, Rear Admiral's son Bradford Whitmore III. Harvard Law, yacht club champion, jaw chiseled from entitlement, smile that never reached his eyes. He leaned too close, invading her space in that way that looks affectionate to strangers but feels like ownership to the person trapped. I shifted weight, my boots creaking. Stay put, Marcus. Not your world. You're just here to give her away. But I've spent 30 years reading the ocean. The way swells build before a rogue wave. The way birds scatter before a squall. I knew fear when I saw it. Emma was terrified. Bradford whispered something. She flinched, spilling champagne on her white dress. She started apologizing frantically, grabbing napkins, hands shaking. Bradford didn't help. He watched her scramble, sipping his champagne, enjoying the control. "Clean it up, Emma," he said loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "You want to be an admiral's daughter-in-law? Better learn to handle pressure. Or maybe you need private lessons before the honeymoon." The innuendo hung there, thick and oily. A few junior officers glanced over, saw the rank difference, the family power, and looked away. That's how it works. The big boats crush the small. Heat built in my chest. A low rumble like an engine turning over on a cold morning. I forced it down. Don't make a scene. You'll ruin her day. The ceremony began. Speeches, toasts, the Admiral making jokes about Bradford, finally settling down. I watched Emma walk down the aisle on the arm of Bradford's father, since she had no one else. She moved like she was walking to her execution. When the chaplain asked if anyone objected, the silence was deafening. Emma's eyes swept the crowd for half a second, landing on me in the back. I saw the plea. But I stayed quiet. I'm just a fisherman. What do I know about high society? The chaplain pronounced them married. Bradford grabbed Emma and kissed her hard, possessively. She didn't melt into it. She endured it. The reception started. I stayed in my corner, invisible among the dress whites and evening gowns. But I watched. Bradford was drinking. A lot. His face getting redder, his voice louder. He had Emma by the wrist, parading her around like a trophy, introducing her to senators and admirals with one hand on her lower back, fingers digging in. My wife knows her place, he announced to a circle of his fraternity brothers, all drunk and laughing. She's got a nice little Coast Guard career, but that ends now. Can't have the wife outtranking the family reputation. She'll be home making babies by next year. Emma's face went white. Bradford, we talked about this. I'm not giving up my commission. We'll talk about it later. Bradford cut her off, his grip tightening on her wrist. Privately. The threat was clear. I started moving before I realized it, navigating through the crowd. But before I could reach her, Emma pulled away and headed for the terrace doors. I followed. The terrace overlooked the harbor, boats bobbing gently at their moorings. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and red. Emma stood at the railing, hyperventilating, tugging at the neckline of her wedding dress like it was strangling her. Emma, I said softly. She spun, eyes wide. When she saw me, her shoulders dropped. Marcus. You came. Promised your dad, I said, keeping my distance. You okay, kid? She wiped her eyes quickly. I'm fine. Just overwhelmed. That Bradford, I said, my voice dropping. He pushing you around? She froze. He's my husband now, Marcus. He's just traditional. His family has expectations. There's traditional, I said, stepping closer, and there's controlling. I know the difference. Marcus, please, she whispered, glancing at the doors. If he sees you. The terrace doors banged open. Bradford stumbled out, tie loosened, 3 of his fraternity brothers behind him. All drunk, all laughing about something crude. Bradford stopped when he saw us. His eyes raked over me. The khakis, the weathered hands, the fishing cap I was holding, and dismissed me instantly. Well, Bradford sneered. Didn't know you invited the help, Emma. Did the catfish guy get lost looking for the kitchen? His friends snickered. He's a family friend, Emma said quickly, moving away from the railing. He was just leaving. I bet he was, Bradford said, swaying slightly. But you weren't dismissed, Lieutenant. We were discussing your resignation. I already drafted the letter. You'll submit it Monday. Emma's face went pale. Bradford, I told you I'm not resigning. I've worked too hard. Bradford stepped into her space, backing her against the railing. The drop to the rocks below was 30 feet. And I told you, my family doesn't have wives who work. You'll resign, you'll move into the estate, and you'll focus on your real job, making me look good and giving my father grandchildren. End of discussion. He reached out, fingers brushing her cheek in a gesture that looked tender but felt like ownership. "You're mine now, Emma. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." It wasn't a request. It was a sentence. I didn't think. The engine just roared to life. "Step away from her," I said. My voice surprised even me. It wasn't loud. It was the sound of a hull cracking on rock. A warning. Bradford paused, looking over his shoulder like he'd forgotten I existed. "Excuse me." "Step away. You're done." Bradford turned fully, leaving Emma against the railing. He was tall, fit, probably played lacrosse at Harvard. He looked at me, 6'3" of dock-hardened muscle, but gray in the beard and heavy in the middle, and laughed. "Listen, old man," Bradford said, walking toward me. "I don't know who you think you are, but this is a private event. You're talking to a Whitmore. Now get back to your fishing boat before I have security throw you in the harbor." "I'm not leaving until she's safe," I said calmly. Bradford stopped 2 feet away. He smelled of expensive whiskey and cologne. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Bradford looked at his friends. "Boys, escort this barnacle off the premises. Use whatever force necessary." 2 of them stepped forward. Young, strong, drunk, and stupid. The first one, a blonde kid with a tennis tan, reached for my arm. "Come on, old-timer. Don't make this." He grabbed my bicep. "Mistake. Fighting isn't about muscle. It's about leverage and knowing where the boat's going to pitch before it does." I didn't pull away. I stepped into him, clamped my hand over his wrist, twisted against the joint while hooking his ankle. He yelped and I shoved him backward into a decorative planter. The second friend swung wild, a haymaker telegraphed from next week. I ducked. I'm not fast, but I know where punches come from when a man's drunk. His fist sailed over my head. I drove a short jab into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. Bradford wasn't laughing anymore. "You stupid." Bradford reached into his jacket. Maybe for a phone. Maybe for a weapon he thought he needed. He lunged. This wasn't a bar fight. This was a man who'd taken some self-defense classes at the club and thought it made him dangerous. He feinted left, tried to grab my shirt. I caught his wrist, stepped to the side, and used his momentum to send him stumbling toward the railing. But Bradford was angrier than he was smart. He recovered, spun, and kicked at my knee. Pain shot up my leg. My knee buckled, old injury from a deck accident years ago. I went down to one knee. "Marcus!" Emma screamed. Bradford capitalized. He grabbed a champagne bottle from a nearby table and swung it at my head. I got my arm up. The bottle shattered on my forearm, glass and champagne exploding everywhere. I felt the cut, hot blood mixing with cold wine. "You're nothing," Bradford growled, standing over me. "Just trash from the docks." He drew back for another hit with the broken bottle. And that's when the door I keep locked kicked open. I caught his wrist. Bradford's eyes went wide. He tried to pull back, but my grip is from 30 years hauling nets in freezing water. I don't let go. I twisted. Hard. Bradford shouted as his wrist gave, and he dropped the bottle. I swept his leg. He hit the marble hard. I didn't wait. I was up, ignoring the screaming in my knee. I grabbed him by his designer tuxedo lapels and slammed him against the terrace railing. His head bounced off the iron. "You don't own her," I growled, face inches from his. "You don't control her. You're done." Bradford panic swung, catching my already bleeding forearm, tearing the sleeve further, exposing the full tattoo. "Security! He's attacking me!" Bradford screamed. Footsteps pounded on marble. "Stand down. Hands where we can see them." The shout came from the terrace entrance. I froze, fist cocked. Bradford was pinned, nose bleeding, eyes terrified. I looked up. 4 security guards and 2 shore patrol officers had weapons drawn. And behind them, looking like he'd seen a ghost, was Rear Admiral James Whitmore. I slowly opened my hands, let Bradford slide down the railing. Stepped back, raising my hands. Bradford scrambled up. Arrest him. He attacked me. He's a lunatic. The Admiral stepped forward. Security parted. He walked straight to me, ignoring his bleeding son. He stared at my torn sleeve. At the tattoo. An anchor wrapped in barbed wire. Beneath it, coordinates. 32 degrees north, 64 degrees west. Beneath that, faded letters. USCG SAR OPS 2007. The Admiral's face went slack. He looked from the tattoo to my face, squinting, trying to reconcile the gray-bearded fisherman with a memory nearly 2 decades old. Ironside, he whispered. Bradford blinked. Dad? You know this criminal? The Admiral didn't answer. He walked right up to me, 6 inches from my face. Looked at the blood on my knuckles. Looked at Emma, trembling by the railing. Kane, the Admiral said, voice shaking. Marcus Kane. You were listed as discharged medical, presumed lost at sea after the hurricane rescue op in 07. Discharged, yes, sir, I rasped. Lost, no. Just found a different kind of service. Sir, Bradford interrupted, trying to regain control. This man is dangerous. He just assaulted me and my groomsmen. He needs to be arrested. The Admiral turned slowly to his son. The look on his face could have frozen the Atlantic. Bradford, the Admiral said quietly, if this man wanted to assault you, you wouldn't be bleeding from your nose. You'd be in the harbor. The Admiral's words hung in the salt air like fog. Bradford stared, pointing a shaking finger at me. Dad, I don't care if he's George Washington. He attacked me. Look at my face. I'm looking, Bradford, the Admiral said, voice dropping to that terrifyingly calm register. And I'm wondering why a man who pulled 17 sailors from a capsized cutter in a Cat 4 hurricane decided to only give you a bloody nose. He turned to me. Marcus, stand down. I need to sort this out, but I can't do it with you in attack posture. I looked at Emma. She was pressed against the railing, tears streaking her makeup, looking terrified of her own wedding reception. I'm good, Admiral, I said. But he doesn't go near her again. Not tonight. Not ever. Bradford bristled. You don't give orders here, Fisherman. Security restrain him. I want him charged with assault. The security guards hesitated, looking from the raving groom to the stoic Admiral to the bleeding fisherman who was somehow the calmest person on the terrace. Sir? One of the shore patrol officers asked the Admiral. The Admiral sighed. Protocol, Lieutenant. Allegation of assault means we secure the scene. Bradford, go to the club's medical office. Get cleaned up. Kane. He looked me in the eye, pleading silently. I have to detain you until we sort this. You know the drill. I nodded, held out my hands. Emma stepped forward. No, Admiral, please. Marcus didn't start it. Bradford was threatening me. Marcus was protecting me. Bradford spun on her, eyes venomous. Careful, Lieutenant. Accusing your husband of misconduct on our wedding day? That's grounds for an annulment and a dishonorable discharge. Maybe we should investigate your relationship with this fisherman. My hands clenched. The security guards flinched. Easy, the Admiral barked. Nobody's investigating Emma. Lieutenant Reeves, go to the bridal suite. Write a statement. Full detail. I'll read it personally. But Admiral. Go, Emma, I said softly. Lock the door. I'll be fine. She looked heartbroken, saluted the Admiral, and left. I watched her go before turning back. Cuff me. They did. Steel clicked around my wrist. They patted me down, found my fishing knife, my truck keys, my wallet with Danny Reeves' photo tucked inside. They loaded me into a security vehicle and drove me to the base shore patrol station. Processing smelled like government coffee and floor wax. They fingerprinted me, took my photo, entered my information. The young petty officer at the computer kept looking from my ID to his screen to me, eyes getting wider. He must have pulled my service record. He didn't say anything, just typed faster. They walked me to interview room 3. Concrete walls. Metal table bolted down. One metal chair also bolted. Mirror on the wall. They chained my cuffs to a ring on the table. 6 inches of play. The door locked. I closed my eyes and counted breath. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out. Only way to keep the noise down. Emma was safe for now. Tomorrow, the Admiral would review the statements, check the security footage, realize Bradford was an entitled predator, and let me go. I'd pay for the broken nose and be back on the water by dawn. That was the plan. But men like Bradford don't follow plans. The door opened 30 minutes later. Bradford. Fresh bandage on his nose, ice pack on his wrist. He'd changed into casual clothes. And he wasn't alone. His 3 fraternity brothers, all sobered up and looking mean. Bradford closed the door. Reached up and switched off the camera's recording light. Comfortable, hero? Bradford asked. I've been in smaller berths, I said evenly. Spent 3 days in a life raft in the North Atlantic once. This is climate controlled. You think this is funny? Bradford walked around the table. You think because you and my father have history you're walking out? He's retiring in 6 months. He's legacy. I'm the future. God help the future, I muttered. Bradford slammed his hands on the table. You embarrassed me. In front of my wife, my family, the entire Coast Guard brass. You embarrassed yourself, I said, meeting his eyes. I just held up a mirror. Bradford's face went purple. He nodded to his friends. The blonde one grabbed my hair from behind, yanking my head back. I strained against the cuffs, but the chain held. Bradford delivered a calculated punch to my gut. Wind exploded from my lungs. That's for the nose. Another punch. Ribs. Same spot he'd kicked outside. Something cracked inside. And that's for thinking you matter. I spat blood on the floor, looked up grinning through the pain. You punch like you sail, Bradford. All show, no technique. Bradford's eyes narrowed. He grabbed a heavy flashlight from his pocket, must have taken it from the security desk. He swung it into my thigh. My leg spasmed. You know what I'm going to do? Bradford circled me. I'm going to tell my father you were drunk. Unstable. A danger to yourself and others. With your medical discharge history, nobody will question it. I can have you committed. And Emma. He leaned close, breath mint fresh and rotten. Once you're gone, I'll make sure she knows exactly who owns her. I'll strip that commission. I'll make her beg me for everything: money, freedom, permission to breathe. And when she's completely broken, the switch flipped. Not anger this time. The cold, absolute zero of a predator deciding the prey needs to end. Bradford raised the flashlight, aiming for my head. I stopped breathing, focused on the chain. Steel links welded to the table eyelet. Table bolted with 4 screws. But metal fatigues. Government contracts go to the lowest bidder. Bradford swung. I didn't flinch. I surged up, driving my legs into the floor, using every ounce of torque from 30 years hauling 1,000-pound net. I threw my shoulders back, snapping the chain taut with the force of a storm swell hitting a seawall. Crack. Pop. The eyelet didn't break. The table leg ripped free from the concrete. Bradford froze mid-swing. I roared, a sound from the bottom of the ocean, and heaved the table upward, flipping it on its side. Still cuffed to it, but now it was a shield. The blond friend lunged. I mule-kicked his knee. It buckled. He went down screaming. Bradford swung the flashlight wildly, hitting my shoulder. My arm went numb, but adrenaline is a hell of a drug. I scrambled up, dragging the table like an anchor. Shoot him! Bradford screamed, backing away. Shoot him! Another friend fumbled for a weapon he didn't have. I couldn't let him think. I spun, using the table's momentum. The metal edge caught him in the hip. He sprawled into the corner. Now just me and Bradford and 3 feet of chain and a table. Bradford looked at the door. No, I growled. I charged, lowered my shoulder and drove him back through the mirror. Glass exploded. We crashed into the observation room. Shore Patrol officers jumped up, coffee everywhere. They saw a bloody giant dragging a table, pinning the rear admiral's son to the floor. Don't move! I shouted. This man is a disgrace to the uniform. Chaos. Alarms blaring. Bradford tried crawling away through broken glass. I stepped on his chest, leaned down. You threatened her, I said, voice shaking with rage. You said you'd break her. I wrapped the chain around his neck, not to choke, just to hold. Jerked him to his feet. Move! You're dead, Kane, Bradford goggled. Dead man walking. Walk. I marched him into the main hallway, chain around his throat, dragging the table. MPs running from both ends, weapons drawn. Drop it. Let him go. Get the Admiral. I roared back. Get Admiral Whitmore or I end his bloodline. I didn't want to hurt him anymore. I wanted witnesses. We reached the main lobby. Full of people. Officers, civilians, wedding guests who'd followed the commotion. They all froze. I stood center of the room, blood dripping, wrists shackled to a table, holding a rear admiral's son by a chain. Marcus. The voice cut through everything. Emma. Standing by the desk, crying. Next to her, the admiral. The admiral looked at the destruction. The shattered mirror down the hall. The bruises on my face that hadn't been there an hour ago. Bradford, terrified and whimpering. Let him go, Marcus, the admiral said. Voice wasn't angry. It was sad. He came into the cell, I said, breathless. Turned off the camera. Beat me while I was chained. Told me what he'd do to Emma. I shoved Bradford forward. He fell at his father's feet. Lies. Bradford screamed. He went crazy. He broke out. He's dangerous. The admiral looked down at his son. Then at the fraternity brothers limping out behind me. Bradford, the admiral said. You turned off the camera in interview 3. Bradford stammered. It malfunctioned. Strange, the admiral said, because I was watching the feed from the observation room backup. We record there too, son. Including audio. Bradford's face went white. The admiral pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen, turned it around. Grainy footage. Bradford swinging the flashlight. Audio crystal clear. I'll strip that commission. Make her beg. The lobby went silent. Bradford looked around, walls closing in. Looked at me, then the exit. The admiral reached out. In one violent motion, he ripped the Coast Guard Academy ring from Bradford's finger. Shore Patrol, the admiral said, voice like ice. Take my son into custody. Article 128, assault. Article 134, conduct unbecoming. and whatever else Jag wants to pile on. 2 burly SPs stepped forward. They grabbed Bradford, spun him, slammed him against the desk. The Admiral walked to me, looked at the table I was still attached to, shook his head with a tired smile. You always were destructive, Ironside. He pulled a key from his pocket, unlocked my cuffs. The table fell with a heavy thud. I rubbed my wrist. He was going to destroy her, sir. I know, Marcus, the Admiral said, hand on my shoulder. You held the line. Like always. Emma ran over, threw her arms around me, didn't care about the blood. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Nothing to apologize for, kid, I said, patting her back. Just taking out the trash. I looked at the Admiral. He gave me a nod. The kind that says we're square. Get him to medical, the Admiral ordered. Then get him a meal. A real one. As they led Bradford away in cuffs, he looked back at me. The arrogance gone. Only fear remained. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. Just adjusted my cap, winced at my ribs, and stood there, a wall between the shark and the school. Medical was quiet, smelling of antiseptic and gauze. The corpsman taped my ribs, stitched my forearm. Every breath was broken glass, but it was familiar pain. The kind that says you're still in the fight. I walked out into the cool night an hour later. The base was quiet. My borrowed truck waited in the lot. Emma and the Admiral stood by the hood. Emma looked different. The fear was gone. Just exhaustion and quiet strength. You didn't have to take that beating, she said, looking at my bandages. You could have told them who you were right away. I shook my head, opening the truck door. Rank doesn't protect you from men like Bradford, Emma. Only truth does. Sometimes you gotta let the truth bleed a little to make people see it. She hugged me carefully. Thank you, Marcus. For being there. For being Dad. My throat tightened. Your old man would be proud, Lieutenant. Were those bars heavy? Don't let anyone take the weight off you. The Admiral stepped up as Emma backed away. Handed me my keys. Didn't offer a handshake. Knew my hands were too swollen. Road's long, Ironside, he said. Only place that makes sense, Admiral, I replied. I climbed in the truck, turned the key. Engine rumbled to life, familiar and true. I didn't look back as I rolled toward the gate. Didn't need to see Bradford in cuffs or the Admiral saluting. Just needed the hum of tires and yellow lines stretching into dark. I touched the St. Christopher medal on the dash, silent witness to every promise kept. My ribs ached, face throbbed. I was tired, old, and battered. But as I merged onto the coastal highway, watching the base lights fade in the mirror, I felt light. I wasn't a hero. Just a fisherman who held the anchor when the storm tried to drag someone under. And tonight she was safe. That was enough.